Imagine pulling up to the airport, not to stand in a security line, not to wrestle with overhead bins, not to wait at some gate surrounded by strangers, but to walk straight onto your own aircraft. Your name is painted across the side in gold. The engines are already warming up. The cabin looks more like a penthouse than a plane. And the whole thing belongs to you. That is the reality Rick Ross stepped into when he revealed his private jet to the world. And once you see what is actually inside this machine, you are going to understand why this might be the single most insane luxury purchase he has ever made. We are talking about a jet valued at $35 million, custom built from the inside out, with a paint job alone that cost $500,000. We are talking about a name emblazoned in gold across the fuselage so that every airport on Earth knows exactly whose aircraft just landed. We are talking about a flying mansion at 30,000 feet, and we are going to break down every single detail, what it looks like, what it costs, what it says about the man who owns it, and why this might be the flex that defines an entire era of his life. Stay locked in because we are just getting started. Yo, what is good, fam? Welcome back. Today we are going somewhere most people will never go, and we are talking about something most people will never own. We are diving deep into Rick Ross's custom Gulfstream G550. The aircraft he named Maybach Air, the jet he spent 6 months searching for before he even signed the paperwork, and the machine that took his lifestyle from legendary to something that genuinely does not have a word for it yet. This is not just another celebrity buying something expensive. This is a man who built himself from the ground up, dollar by dollar, deal by deal, beat by beat, and then decided that the sky itself was going to be his next statement. Let's get into it. Before we can fully appreciate what this jet represents, you have to understand who Rick Ross is and what it actually took to get to this point, because the plane is not just a purchase. It is a chapter in a story that started long before the music. Born William Leonard Roberts II in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and raised in Carroll City, Florida, Rick Ross grew up in an environment where success was not handed to anyone. He understood early on that the way out was through work, through hustle, through an unwillingness to accept limits that the world tried to place on people who looked like him and came from where he came from. He built a persona that was larger than life from the very beginning. Not as a performance, but as a declaration. When he hit the mainstream in 2006 with Hustlin', that song was not just a record, it was a mission statement. It told anyone who was listening exactly what kind of man Rick Ross was and exactly what he was working toward. And from that moment, he never slowed down. The discography he built is one of the most consistent in hip-hop history. Album after album, he delivered music that felt cinematic, ambitious, and undeniably boss level. Deeper than the music was the business infrastructure he was quietly constructing behind the scenes. Maybach Music Group became one of the most respected labels in the game, signing artists who themselves became superstars. He built his brand as a lifestyle authority, as someone who understood the relationship between success and the symbols of success: the cars, the mansions, the fashion, the food. His Wingstop franchise investments turned into a financial engine of their own. His real estate portfolio expanded, his partnerships multiplied. By the time Rick Ross entered his 40s, he had built the kind of empire that takes most people multiple lifetimes to even imagine. And all of that history, all of that work, was the foundation that made Maybach Air possible. Now here is where it gets real, because when you talk about Rick Ross and luxury, people think about the cars first. The man has over 100 vehicles. He hosted his own car show on the grounds of his Atlanta area estate just to give people a look at what was parked outside. He has Rolls Royces, vintage muscle cars, rare collectibles that most automotive museums would be envious of. People think about the mansions, the former home of Evander Holyfield in Georgia, with its 25,000 square feet, its swimming pools, its tennis courts, and its sheer physical scale. People think about the jewelry, the watches, the fashion. But here is the thing about all of those flex moments. They are ground level. They exist in the same physical space as everyone else. You can drive past a Rolls Royce on the street. You can look at a mansion from outside the gate, a private jet. That is a different kind of statement entirely. That is freedom from every constraint that regular life puts on movement. That is an entirely different altitude of living. In early 2023, Rick Ross made the move. He acquired a Gulfstream G550, registered under N676AS, purchased through his company Maybach Air LLC, But before he made that call, he spent 6 months evaluating aircraft. 6 months. He sat in different jets, walked through different cabins, studied the specs, compared the options. He has said publicly that he did not rush the decision. He did not just buy the first impressive thing he saw. He was methodical about it, which tells you everything about how seriously he takes ownership. This was not an impulse. This was an investment in a lifestyle that he had been building for 2 decades. And when he finally made the choice, he did not just buy a jet. He bought the jet that he was then going to completely transform into something that had never existed before in aviation history. Let's talk about what a Gulfstream G550 actually is, because you need to understand the baseline before you understand what Ross did to elevate it. The G550 is one of the most respected large cabin business jets ever built. Gulfstream, a company synonymous with the absolute upper tier of private aviation, introduced the G550 to service in 2004, and it spent nearly 2 decades as the aircraft of choice for world leaders, Fortune 500 executives, military commanders, and a very select group of celebrities with the financial firepower to acquire one. It seats up to 18 passengers. It is powered by 2 Rolls-Royce BR710 turbofan engines. It has a maximum range of over 7,700 nautical miles, which means it can fly from Miami to London, from Los Angeles to Tokyo, from New York to Dubai, all without a single refueling stop. Its cruise speed reaches around 610 miles per hour. It flies at a service ceiling of 51,000 feet, which is actually above the cruising altitude of most commercial airliners. When you are on a G550, you are literally above the clouds that commercial passengers sit beneath. And with a wingspan of 93 feet and a length of 96 feet, this is not a small aircraft. This is a full-scale flying palace. Now, the airframe that Ross acquired was built in 2012, which means it was just over a decade old at the time of purchase. With a life cycle expected to reach roughly 30 years, this aircraft had not even reached its halfway point yet. Ross was not buying something aging out of relevance. He was buying a machine in what you might call the prime of its operational life, mature enough to have proven itself, young enough to have decades of service ahead, and then he handed it over to the people who would turn it into something completely new. Ross gave the transformation project to Duncan Aviation, based in Lincoln, Nebraska. If you do not know Duncan Aviation, understand that they are not just any maintenance company. They are the largest privately owned business jet maintenance, repair, and overhaul provider in the world. When the world's most discerning owners want their aircraft redesigned at the highest level, Duncan Aviation is the name that comes up. Ross sat down with senior completions and modifications sales rep Jeff Bodette, senior lead designer Mary Lee, and associate designer Hannah Calkins to work through the vision. From the very first conversation, the design team understood that this was not going to be a subtle project. This was going to be a statement piece. Mary Lee said it herself. Ross wanted a design that was unique, personalized, and that made a statement the moment it touched down on any runway in the world. He wanted his name on the plane. He wanted to move away from white entirely. He wanted something that had never been done before on a G550. The team went to work, but here is where it gets real spicy. Before the exterior was even finished, there was a layer of detail that most people never talk about. Jeff Bodette had an idea, a hidden element that would only be visible through the tail camera, displayed on the monitors inside the cabin. Painted on the backside of the engines, hidden from anyone standing outside the aircraft, were 2 words: biggest boss. It is the kind of detail that says everything about the man and the machine. A surprise for the people riding inside. An inside joke between the jet and its owner. A reminder every single time that tail camera feed comes on of exactly whose aircraft this is and exactly what he built to get here. Paint team leader Brian Woolsey said it himself. No one knows it is there unless they see it on those interior monitors. That hidden message is one of the most personal touches you will find on any private jet anywhere in the world. Now let us talk about the exterior in full, because what Duncan Aviation produced for the outside of this aircraft is nothing short of stunning. They stripped whatever existed before and rebuilt the visual identity of the plane from scratch. The base is a gloss black and pearl gold 2-tone scheme. Deep, rich, reflective black running across the body, with pearl gold accents that shift and catch the light differently, depending on how the sun hits the aircraft. On top of that base, they applied the name. Not printed, not wrapped. Painted in a custom, high reflective gold lettering that the team developed specifically for this project. Lettering that was designed to achieve maximum visual impact from any distance. The name reads Rick Ross along the fuselage, with the signature $ signs replacing the letter S. the same styling that appears across his albums, his merchandise, and his brand identity for years. On the tail of the aircraft, the Maybach Music Group logo sits in full view, connecting the plane permanently to the empire that made it possible. And the paint job alone, just the exterior transformation, cost an estimated $500,000. $500,000 on paint. Let that sink in for a minute. The ramp presence this aircraft creates when it lands is not accidental. When that jet pulls onto any tarmac in the world, gloss black and pearl gold gleaming under the lights, with Rick Rowe written across the side in custom gold lettering, the entire airport stops. It does not blend in. It was never meant to. It was designed to announce itself before anyone even steps off. The designers at Duncan Aviation said it from the beginning. This was all about ramp presence, mission accomplished. Now let us walk inside, because the exterior is just the introduction. The real story is in the cabin, and Ross has been generous enough to give the world a tour of what he built in there. The redesigned interior of this G550 was compared by Ross himself to the interior of a G600, which is Gulfstream's next model up in their lineup, the aircraft that replaced the G550 and comes in at an even higher price point. The fact that Ross's G550 interior rivals that aircraft's cabin is a testament to how much he invested in the refurbishment. The seating configuration accommodates up to 17 or 18 passengers, but this is not the kind of seating you find on a charter flight with strangers. These are full-grain leather chairs, the kind of chairs that you sink into, that adjust to your body, that recline into bed configurations for long-haul flights. The aesthetics throughout the cabin are cohesive and intentional. Dark tones, premium materials, finishes that feel like they belong in a luxury hotel suite rather than on a flying machine. Nothing was left at default. Every surface, every detail, every material choice was deliberate. One of the standout touches that Ross himself highlighted during his social media tour of the aircraft was the automated table. It folds out directly from the armrest. Smooth, clean, effortless. No fumbling with tray tables, no awkward setup. You reach over, it extends, and you have a surface in front of you that looks like it belongs in a boardroom. Alongside that, the window shades are automated, a feature that sounds simple but represents the level of refinement throughout. Everything in this cabin is designed to require as little physical effort as possible, because when you are at this level, every moment of friction has been removed. The kitchen setup aboard Maybach Air is fully equipped and modern. Ross was not going to travel the world on his own aircraft eating airline food. The galley is designed to support full meal preparation, meaning his personal cabin attendant, a position he advertised in late 2023 with a salary range of $85,000 to $115,000 per year, can prepare and serve food at the level you would expect from a private chef. The job posting itself was a cultural moment. Ross specified not just cooking and service skills, but positive energy, and given that he has experienced health challenges, including seizures during travel, some medical competency, including CPR, was part of the requirements. That detail speaks to something important. This aircraft is not a party bus. It is a private, mobile, managed environment designed to support Ross's health, his work, and his lifestyle simultaneously. The bedding situation inside Maybach Air is its own conversation. Custom Rick Ross pillowcases are on the beds, because of course they are, and the blankets covering those beds are custom-made Louis Vuitton. Not a Louis Vuitton pattern thrown on a generic blanket, custom-made. The luxury brand's aesthetic woven into the fabric of the aircraft's sleeping environment. For flights that stretch across time zones, from Miami to London or Los Angeles to Tokyo, being able to sleep in a bed with custom LV blankets at 35,000 feet is a comfort level that simply does not have a comparison point in the commercial world. The entertainment setup in this aircraft is what you would expect from a man who has filmed music videos, hosted television appearances, and lived his entire adult life in a visual culture. The screens, the sound, the connectivity, all of it has been updated and integrated into the refurbished interior. The tail camera feed brings the outside world into the cabin at any time, and as we mentioned, that same feed is what reveals the hidden biggest boss message on the engine backs. It is a small detail with a large personality, exactly the way Ross approaches everything. Let us talk about the numbers that come with operating a machine like this, because owning a private jet is not a one-time purchase. It is a commitment that requires ongoing financial power to sustain. The jet itself, at its current valuation, sits at around $35 million, but the aircraft is just the beginning. The hangar where Ross keeps Maybach Air is at Miami Opa-locka Airport, and he has described it as one of the most exclusive hangars at that facility. Monthly hangar costs at that level can range from $50,000 to $100,000 depending on the size of the space and the staff attached to it. And this particular hangar is not just a parking space for the jet. Ross stores his collection of luxury vintage vehicles there. Arcade machines, motorcycles, and one detail that is genuinely remarkable: a bulletproof, temperature-controlled wine and champagne cellar inside the hangar itself. The man built a vault for his collection inside the building where his plane lives. That is a level of layered luxury that most people cannot even conceptualize. Beyond the hangar, you have fuel costs. A G550 burns through jet fuel at a rate that reflects its size and power. A full tank for a long-haul transatlantic flight can run tens of thousands of dollars in fuel alone. Maintenance for a jet of this class requires certified aviation professionals and regular inspections that are both mandatory and expensive. Crew costs, including pilots qualified on the G550 type rating and the cabin attendant Ross publicly hired, add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in salaries and benefits. Insurance for a $35 million aircraft is its own substantial figure. When you add everything together, industry estimates suggest that operating a jet of this size and class costs somewhere between $2 and $4 million per year, even without any major maintenance events. That is the real cost of owning a private jet at this level. And Rick Ross has made clear he is entirely comfortable with it. But here is where we have to talk about what this purchase actually means in the context of Ross's brand and his philosophy, because he has said something very specific about why he bought this jet that goes beyond just wanting a luxury toy. Ross bought Maybach Air because he was done flying commercial and done chartering. He was done being on someone else's timeline, done going through airports where his movement was constrained by schedules he did not set, done having his travel subject to factors outside his control. He once described the private jet purchase as a $5 billion play. And while that number was obviously not the literal price, the spirit behind it was entirely real. He meant that owning this aircraft was part of a larger financial and personal strategy. He intended to use it to move faster, to close deals more efficiently, to be present in cities and rooms where business was being done without the friction of commercial air travel. He was investing in his own access and his own time, and he believed that investment would multiply his wealth rather than simply drain it. Real talk. That philosophy is one that serious business operators have understood for generations. There is a reason Fortune 500 executives fly private. It is not entirely about comfort or status. It is about the ability to move on your own terms, to arrive rested rather than depleted, to hold meetings at 35,000 feet rather than sitting in a middle seat. For someone with Ross's portfolio of music, real estate, food franchises, and entertainment ventures, the ability to be anywhere in the world on short notice without friction is a genuine competitive advantage. Maybach Air is not just a symbol, it is infrastructure. That said, let us be completely honest, it is also absolutely a symbol, and Ross would be the first to tell you that. He did not have to put his name in custom gold lettering on the side of the plane. He did not have to commission a $500,000 paint job that announces his arrival from 200 yards away. He did not have to give his aircraft a name inspired by his record label and share every inch of it on social media. He did those things because Rick Ross has always understood that the image and the reality are not opposites. They are the same thing. He built a career on the idea that success is not just achieved privately and enjoyed quietly. It is expressed loudly and shared with the world because that expression is itself part of the culture. When he named the jet Maybach Air, he was connecting his aircraft to his music, his label, his identity. When he painted his name across the fuselage in gold, he was turning a machine into a message. The message is the same one he has been broadcasting since 2006. The biggest boss is here. He built everything you see, and he is not done yet. Now compare this to where Rick Ross sits in the hierarchy of celebrity luxury aviation. He is in real company. Tiger Woods flies a G550. Michael Jordan flies a G550. That is worth over $60 million and features a private bedroom, a private bathroom, and a full cigar bar. Jordan has always been one of the most discerning luxury purchasers in sports history. Kim Kardashian went the next level up and acquired a G650ER, the longer-range successor to the G550, for a base price of $95 million, which ballooned to around $150 million after she had designers Waldo Fernandez and Tommy Clements rebuild the interior in what can only be described as a flying luxury apartment. Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, Mark Zuckerberg, and Steven Spielberg all operate in the G650 territory. Elon Musk has been known to operate multiple jets simultaneously. Rick Ross, with his G550 valued at $35 million fully customized, is sitting at the entry point of this league. But let us be clear about what that means. The entry point of the private large cabin jet ownership world is a financial and cultural position that less than a fraction of a percent of the global population will ever reach. He is at the table, and he himself has said he plans to add more jets to his collection in the future. The G550 may be the first chapter of what becomes an aviation portfolio. There is something else worth understanding about what people do not realize about private jet ownership at this level. Something that the glossy social media tours and the gold lettering and the custom blankets do not fully capture. Owning and operating an aircraft of this complexity is a management operation. The tail number, N33055, references the zip code and area code of Miami. That level of personalization extends from the paint on the outside all the way to the registration details on the paperwork. The aircraft has its own dedicated team. It requires pre-flight planning for every journey, coordination with airports around the world, handling of customs and immigration, management of fuel contracts, and constant oversight by certified aviation professionals. Ross was not just buying a jet. He was taking on the operational responsibility of running a small aviation department housed in his private hangar, attached to his personal brand and his business empire. Most people who see the pictures of the gleaming black and gold aircraft on the tarmac do not think about the infrastructure behind it. The pilots logging their simulator hours, the maintenance crews completing their inspection checklists, the hangar staff managing the space alongside his car collection. That is the real cost of this life, and it is a cost that Ross has chosen to carry with complete intention. The range this aircraft gives him is worth pausing on as well. With a maximum range of over 7,700 nautical miles and a flight duration of 14 to 16 hours depending on weight and routing, Maybach Air can take Ross from his home base in Miami to virtually any major city in the world without stopping. London is reachable in a single flight. Tokyo, Dubai, Tokyo, Paris, Sydney, all within the operational envelope of this aircraft. For an artist who has performed internationally throughout his career, for a businessman with relationships across multiple continents, for a man whose entire brand is built around the idea of living at the highest level possible, that reach matters enormously. He does not have to plan around layovers. He does not have to adjust his schedule for connecting flights. He boards his aircraft, his name literally on the side of the plane, and he goes directly to where he needs to be. That is a level of freedom that most people experience once, if ever, in their lives, and Rick Ross built it for himself permanently. Let us also talk about what this purchase says about the arc of a career. Rick Ross has been in the music industry since the mid-2000s, building continuously for nearly 2 decades. He has seen the industry shift around him multiple times. The move from physical albums to streaming, the collapse of traditional music business models, the rise of the artist as entrepreneur rather than just performer. And through every one of those shifts, he adapted. He diversified, he invested, he thought beyond the next record and into the next chapter of what his name and his brand could become. Owning Maybach Air is not separate from that story. It is one of its most visible expressions. It represents what happens when someone builds correctly over a long period of time, makes decisions with patience rather than impulse, and ultimately arrives at a place where the symbols of success are not borrowed or leased or rented for a photo opportunity. They are owned, fully, legally, permanently. The jet is his. The name on the side is his. The hangar is his. The wine cellar inside the hangar is his. Every detail of every surface is the result of a vision that he personally directed and funded. That is what real ownership looks like. There is a philosophical dimension to this that is worth sitting with for a moment. When you look at a private jet as a category of purchase, it sits in a strange space between necessity and statement. For someone with Ross's level of mobility demands and business operations, there is a genuine practical argument for ownership. The time saved, the flexibility gained, the reduced friction in business travel, those are real and measurable benefits. But at the same time, you cannot look at the $500,000 custom paint job, the custom Louis Vuitton blankets, the personalized pillowcases, the gold lettering, the hidden biggest boss message on the engines and conclude that this is purely a functional purchase. It is a passion project. It is a love letter to the version of himself he has worked to become. It is the physical, flying, gleaming, gold-lettered answer to every moment in his life when someone told him there was a ceiling on what he could achieve. And the culture noticed. When Ross posted to his social media accounts announcing the acquisition, the response was immediate and massive. The aviation world took notice. His story made it onto the cover of the inaugural issue of Haute Jets magazine, with Ross photographed in front of Maybach Air in all its black and gold glory. The hip-hop community celebrated it as a milestone. The business community looked at a rapper from Carroll City, Florida, who had built a $150 million empire and decided that his next move was his own aircraft. And they nodded with respect, because that is what this is. It is not a stunt. It is a milestone. At the end of the day, Maybach Air is not just about Rick Ross having an insane private jet. It is about what the jet represents in the larger story of what he built. It is about a man who spent years flying commercial, even while other artists in his tier were chartering, because he was focused on building the financial foundation that would allow him to own rather than borrow. It is about a man who then took 6 months to find the right aircraft, because the right choice matters more than a fast choice. It is about a man who invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in a custom paint job, because when you put your name on something, you make sure it looks exactly the way your name deserves to look. It is about a man who built a bulletproof wine cellar inside his hangar, not because anyone told him he should, but because that is the life he wanted and he created the conditions to have it. The real question is not whether Rick Ross deserved this. The real question is who else is watching, learning, and building toward their own version of the story. Because Maybach Air is not just a jet. It is a blueprint for what happens when vision meets work, meets patience, meets decades of refusal to accept limitations. And for everyone who has been following the biggest boss through every chapter of his career, through every hit record, every business move, every moment of triumph, and every moment of adversity, this jet is not a surprise. It is the inevitable result of everything that came before it. What are your thoughts on Maybach Air and everything that Rick Ross has built to get to this point? Drop it in the comments right now. Let us know where you think he goes from here, and hit that subscribe button, because we are not done. There is way more where this came from.